This significant message prompts us to examine the inherent human inclination to oppose change and seek refuge in the comfort of no. Earl Nightingale highlights the influence of fear, a product of our long-standing survival instincts, on our decision-making processes, and its role in hindering our ability to fully engage with life's opportunities. Utilizing insights from enduring wisdom and the contemplations of philosophers, authors, and thought leaders, he advocates for a transformative shift, a transition toward embracing life with a yes. Agreeing to something extends beyond mere positivity. It serves as a catalyst for development, exploration, and high standards. It involves moving beyond familiar boundaries, confronting obstacles, and actively participating in life as an architect of experiences rather than just a passive participant. Nightingale illustrates a life characterized by personal fulfillment, the influence of habits, and the satisfaction derived from purpose-driven living, creating a depiction that is rich, meaningful, and vibrant. In a universe characterized by complexity and intrigue, he highlights the unique advantages of human existence. We possess a distinctive capacity to select, innovate, and add value. He articulates that excellence is a habit cultivated through intentional actions, while happiness emerges as a byproduct of progressing toward our objectives. This message urges us to recognize our potential and to confront life with courage, curiosity, and a definitive yes.
There seems to be an ancient predisposition in the human race to say no. It is, of course, a conservative response, a status quo protector, a reactionary response that says, I'm managing to cope with things as they are, don't rock the boat, don't introduce any new problems for me. Change of any kind always carries with it the possibility of change for the worse. We're reminded by Eric Hoffer in his book, The True Believer, that there is a conservatism of the very poor as rigid as that of the very rich. For the poor are managing survival. No matter how bleak their circumstances, they feel that any change may be for the worse. The very rich are quite content with things as they are, and they try very hard to keep them that way. But we all come from poor backgrounds, some of us more recently than others, and the ancient fear of making a decision that could result in disaster still haunts the corridors of our minds. However, successful people tend to say yes to life and its possibilities. They go out toward life in cheerful expectation of happy results. They enjoy the risks of considered opportunity and adventure. They've found that with their expectations, zeal, and commitment, they tend to win, and the occasional negative result is shrugged off as part of the game. We really don't have time to keep saying no if we expect to succeed. Survival should not be the only option for a human being. It's fine for horses and cows, and pigs and chickens seem to thrive on it. But simply surviving is stultifying and the beginning of the long slide toward oblivion for the man or woman. Human beings simply require more. It's important that we enjoy our time here and make some sort of contribution to the welfare of others. All but the bent and twisted psyches will go along with that. The lifetime takers are those who have failed to mature. Our joy comes from producing, giving, creating. Being happy seems to depend on the direction in which we're heading. Happiness depends at any given time upon our moving towards something we wish to bring about in our lives. We can feel it in the smallest things. For example, we're actually slightly happier when we're going out to dinner than we are on the trip home after dinner. We're happier Christmas morning than we are Christmas afternoon. We're happier when we're moving toward a goal than after we've achieved it. Remember the line, be choosy, therefore, what you set your heart upon, for if you want it strongly enough, you'll get it. Why should we not say yes to a life? Surely the most astonishing state in the vast universe. Life is natural on planet Earth, but we found it nowhere else. And being human puts each of us in charge of his or her destiny on this incredible planet, speeding through space on the great wheel of the Milky Way galaxy at 1,000,000 miles an hour. And as the great galaxy and the mystery of space turns on its invisible axis, we rotate around our life-giving sun, turning as we do on our own slightly wobbly axis with our captive moon. Think about it once in a while. We enjoy an occasional science fiction story or motion picture, but nothing can equal the reality of our existence. Here we dwell on this tiny grain of sand among billions of other grains and stars. Some of those stars are so large that if one were placed where our sun now resides, our planet would be almost in its exact center. And out of it all, we have this delightful blue planet, small but mostly agreeable, with its wonderful oceans and seas, its mountain ranges, its snow and glaciers and forbidding deserts and very dwellable places in between. It boggles my mind, and in the midst of it all, we're granted a holiday on Earth. How we tend to underestimate everything. How we look for a king to serve, before whom to fall on our knees in abject subjection. Tell us what to do, we shout. Show us the way. Lead us, we are sheep. Poor little lambs who've lost our way. Ba, ba, ba. We need only stand up and choose our first destination. We need to stop playing the fool. Aristotle said excellence is an art won by training and habituation. We do not act rightly because we have virtue or excellence, but we rather have those qualities because we've acted rightly. We are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an art, but a habit. We are what we repeatedly do, but what we do is a matter of choice. Excellence is a habit. So is ordinary, common ways of doing things. So is a poor, substandard way of doing things a habit. We form habits to match our outlook on life. Aristotle said, "We do not act rightly because we have virtue or excellence, but rather we have those because we've acted rightly. We are what we do and how we do what we do, but what we do and how we do what we do are matters of personal choice. We are the only creatures on the planet Earth with a choice as to what we do and how we do it. And saying yes can lead us to excellence. Yes, I will do that to the very best of my ability, and doing it well repeatedly will lead to the habit of excellence. Excellence is a wonderful way to say yes to life. Excellence invariably brings us joy." The distinguished philosopher George Santa Anna said, "There is no cure for birth and death, save to enjoy the interval." Excellence helps us enjoy our days. The distinguished Jesuit paleontologist Pierre Teilhard de Chardin said, "It is our duty as men and women to proceed as though difficulties do not exist. We are collaborators in creation." Our own great Henry David Thoreau put it this way: "We have only to proceed confidently in the direction of our dreams and live the life we have imagined to meet with a success unexpected in common hours." Sometimes one wonders how many times we must be bludgeoned over the head with liberating truth before we can muster the confidence to stand up on our own hind legs and build great lives for ourselves. We must clean the slate of all of our pet myths. It takes money to make money. If that were true, we'd have a world of poor people. Rich people had to start somewhere. You have to know someone. You have to get the breaks. You have to be lucky. God, how we love to surround our inactivity with nonsense of that kind. Personally, I'd rather go along with the great ones. Don't talk, listen. You can't learn anything when you're talking. Listen to that inner voice. I love the way James Allen put it in his classic little book, As a Man Thinketh. "Dream lofty dreams, and as you dream, so shall you become. Your vision is the promise of what you shall one day be. Your ideal is the prophecy of what you shall at last unveil." The greatest achievement was at first and for a time a dream. The oak sleeps in the acorn. The bird waits in the egg. And in the highest vision of the soul, a waking angel stirs. Dreams are the seedlings of realities. You will realize the vision, not the idle wish, of your heart. be it base or beautiful, or a mixture of both, for you will always gravitate toward that which you secretly most love. Into your hands will be placed the exact results of your own thoughts. You will receive that which you earn, no more, no less. End of quote. Saying yes to the world means we have a nice balance and pretty good mental health. The Menninger Foundation recognizes some guidelines for good mental health, so check yourself against 5 points from those guidelines. 5 important attributes of mentally healthy people are, number 1, a wide variety of sources of gratification. This does not mean that they chase frenetically from one activity to another, but that they find pleasure in many different ways and from many things. If for any reason they lose some of their sources of gratification, they have others to turn to. For example, a person who loses a good friend through death may sorrow, but if he has other good friends, he draws psychological sustenance from them and recovers. But if a person loses his only good friend, he has little to fall back on and continues to grieve in his loneliness. A person has the same problem if his only interest is his job, or his immediate family, or a single hobby. 2. Flexibility under stress. A windstorm may blow over the great oak, while the grass and reeds about it are undamaged. They're flexible, the oak is not. Mentally healthy people learn to roll with the punches. When faced with problems, they can see alternative solutions. Flexibility under stress is closely related to having a wide variety of sources of gratification. With more supports to fall back on, a person is less threatened by situations that produce fear and anxiety. Number 3, recognition and acceptance of limitations and assets. Put another way, they have a reasonably accurate picture of themselves and they like what they see. This doesn't mean they're complacent about themselves, but that they know they cannot be anyone else, and that's all right with them. They build on their assets and don't knock their heads against the wall in areas in which they have little or no ability. 4. Understanding the importance of treating people as individuals. Mentally healthy persons recognize others as distinct and different and original human beings and treat them as such. Make them feel important and esteemed. People who are preoccupied with themselves pay only superficial attention to others. They're so tied up in themselves that they cannot observe the subtleties in another person's feelings, nor can they really listen. Mentally healthy people care about what other people feel. 5. Keeping active and productive. Mentally healthy people use their resources on their own behalf and on behalf of others. They do what they do because they like to do it and enjoy using their skills. They don't feel driven to produce to prove themselves. They're in charge of their activities. The activities are not in charge of them. When they're chosen for leadership of one sort or another, it's because they have the skills to lead in a given situation, not because they have to exercise power over others. Qualifying as a mentally healthy person isn't all that difficult, but it does include those 5 important criteria. Those who qualify are people who like to say yes to life, and do so whenever they feel they can. Do you have a wide variety of sources of gratification? Are you flexible under stress? Flexibility under stress was once nominated as the most important qualification of a great executive by the Harvard Business School. Do you recognize and accept your limitations as well as your assets? Do you treat others as individuals, each one separate and worth recognition as such? Are you active and productive? Are you in the driver's seat of your activities rather than in the back seat going along with someone else's direction? If you answered yes to all 5 of the criteria for good mental health, you're no doubt the person I'm talking about. Perhaps you're looking for a new aiming point, a new goal, a new interest in life. If you do not meet the 5 criteria, examine the 1 or more that you do not meet and resolve to qualify as soon as you can. And by all means, relax and open your doors and windows to the fresh breeze of life and its possibilities. Start saying yes. All my life, at just the right time and not a second sooner, I've been blessed with the greatest good fortune. I've had my share of setbacks, but with steadily recurring faith that the system I've outlined in this book really works, I've watched it confirm and reconfirm itself over and over again. Yes, we obtain what we make up our minds to obtain. We fulfill our expectations in each of the three vital areas of our lives. 1, our work. 2, our family. 3, our income. And not necessarily by any means in that order. I knew I wanted to be a writer when I was still a young boy. Broadcasting came along as a serendipitous spin-off, so my work has been satisfactorily progressing from the time I was mustered out of the Marine Corps following World War II. Since 1950, I've been writing and broadcasting my own radio programs, and for many years in Chicago, my own daily television programs. And since 1956, I've been writing and narrating recordings in an attempt to spread the word about achievement. One of the most difficult ideas for the human being to fully assimilate is that while we are social creatures, achievement is an individual and isolated affair. That is, while we're a part of a population of many millions and must find our being in successful relationships with such numbers, in fact our success depends upon it. In order to succeed in the steady pursuit and completion of our goals, we must think and act as distinct and separate, even different creatures. Just as a successful marriage, filled to overflowing with joy and genuine love for one another, depends upon two distinct individuals whose characteristics and experience perfectly meld them into an even better whole, our success as individuals operating in a highly populated environment must be an individual thing in each of the three categories: family, work, income. We need all three. And keep in mind that income comes in two distinct and important categories. It's the money we earn for the service we render, and equally important, it's the psychic income we receive for the service we render and for the full or nearly full utilization of ourselves in the process. This psychic income comes from both the family and the work and results in our self-esteem, the way we feel about and accept ourselves. We need all three, and we need the income in both categories. A man without the right woman in his life is a crippled, truncated, incomplete person. The same is true for the woman. Each of us is a half walking around looking for the other half. And when the two correct halves finally come together, all the lights go on and the music swells, and anything at all becomes quite possible. And it's the same with the idea of work, or profession, or career, or whatever you want to call it. Two halves coming together to make a whole. But just as the successful marriage is different from all other marriages, successful or not, a person and his or her work, when it's the correct work, are different from all others, even those in the same work. That's because no two people are alike, and each of them brings a slightly different chemistry and experience and genetic profile to whatever he or she does. Diana and I were both married to other people before we met and fell deeply in love. Neither of us could bring to the others exactly what we brought to our relationship, nor was it possible before for either of us to find the astonishing blend of characteristics that worked to our mutual benefit when we did find one another. It was as though a master craftsman had formed two oddly shaped and complex parts and tossed them at different times into the Pacific Ocean, thousands of miles apart. In each was the required electronic homing device that would seek its perfect counterpart, but in the attempt might first form imperfect connections with others similarly involved. Finally, one morning in a completely strange setting, these two complicated parts would float into each other's range and begin a circling process to attempt once again to see if a perfect matchup were possible. And click, perhaps that's where the expression "we just clicked" comes from, the two suddenly find they fit. Not perfectly at first, but very well. And with the passing of each day after that, the fit gets better, tighter, until the seams are no longer visible. From that point on, they each exist as parts of a whole. They find their being together. The family is a success. The work should be a similar phenomenon, but with greater latitude. Mozart wrote great operas, but he also wrote delightful vaudeville sketches. As long as wonderfully original music was involved, Mozart was in his element. The architect can design a dwelling or a great auditorium or a church or a child's treehouse or a prison. To find the right person, we must know that the person exists, and that soon or late we shall come in contact with that person. With such expectancy, we become a willing magnet, receptively set at the correct signal, a scanning radar, we might say, with the inchoate picture of the person we're looking for, a part of our mind and being. We then need to bide our time and wait for the lights to go on and the music to play. Finding and living in the right work is in some ways quite similar, except it's a comfort we feel, a competence that we don't feel when doing other things. We can all do hundreds of things, just as we can meet hundreds of people of the opposite sex. But one of those things we can do with an uncommon ease and facility, the way Robinson Jeffers or Edgar Allan Poe could write poetry that can move us to tears. When that happens, the work is a tremendous success. And when that happens, it often follows that the income in both important categories, psychic and real, will take care of itself. But with these two great divisions of life now successfully accomplished, it's time for creative thinking. With this factor at work, the rest of one's life is assuredly endlessly interesting and endlessly successful. For with creative thinking, which includes the input of others who join your team, you're on a roll, as they say in Las Vegas, that needs to end only when you do. And it often happens that it need not end then, but be carried on by others. With a happy home life and in the right work, whatever that happens to be, and it will always involve serving others because that's what we're here for, adding the increment of creative thinking will give us an endless tessellation of new goals to reach. We have something interesting to do every day of our lives. And on the days when we have nothing at all to do, the idle Sunday or holiday that we devote to leisure, they have meaning also because we've earned the time off and feel good about it. Millions are now enjoying to the fullest their retirement years for the same reason. They've earned them, and each new day is an exercise in doing exactly what they want to do.